Donald supported the invasion of Iraq.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved over and over again.
Wrong.
He actually advocated for the actions we took in Libya and urged that Gaddafi be taken out after actually doing some business with him one time. But the larger point, he says this constantly, is George W. Bush made the agreement about when American troops would leave Iraq, not Barack Obama.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump last night discussing national security. And following last weekend's, or the terror attacks of 2 weekends ago now, what we saw in New York and New Jersey, obviously that has a special relevance to all of us. It also prompts the question, what role will national security play in our upcoming election? Something we're going to discuss right now as we continue at the anchor desk with former CIA analyst Lisa Ruth and former NYPD special investigator Michael Solomon. Thanks to you both for hanging in there. And I'll tell you what we're going to do too. We've got a caller right now at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Michael, I think you'll speak this guy's language, or at least dialect, close. From Brooklyn, Tony is on the line. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You bet.
I got to tell you, I'm not a big political person, but I watched the documentary on TV 2 days ago, and it totally blew my mind. It was called Clinton Cash, and I think if anybody watches it, they wouldn't even consider ever voting for Hillary. Okay, it's the most corrupt, the corruption that is going on. She has made deals. She made deals with.
Well, the one that stands out in my mind is the whole deal with the foundation and the guys with access to the uranium mines,
20%.
and what Saleh is basically handing over 20% of control to the Russians. So, Tony, I think we share your concern, and since we have two people with intelligence and law enforcement backgrounds, and Michael, since Tony's kind of speaking your language or your dialect, maybe you want to take it first.
Tony, Mets or Yankees? I would say that, you know, it's amazing. You talk about conspiracy. I mean, pay for play is like, you know, it's one thing pay for play. Everybody does it in business. You should do it in politics. You know, you wanted to get your kid into West Point, maybe you donate it to your congressman's campaign or whatever. But when you're talking about pay for play and the prize is national, you're giving away national security and our interests in national security. Boy, I got to tell you, I don't care what you call it, but it's treason as far as I'm concerned.
Let me just offer a friendly amendment, having been there but not done that. If there were anything that could be traced to a quid pro quo, such as West Point, you'd end up in the slammer. Oh, yeah. Now, the point is, and I know it was illustrative, but the fact is, this is why, when I was in Congress, I took great pains to make sure everyone who wanted to go to a service academy went through the competitive testing and went through a committee. But I understand the illustrative point you're making.
Yeah, it's a metaphor, really. You know,
the broader sense, though, Lisa, and this is where your background at the CIA comes in, to see what's happened to the State Department. It was like suddenly you had a Undersecretary of State in Monty Hall saying, let's make a deal. You put the money in, we have the access. And Foggy Bottom, we know the political leanings over there, but for the CIA, where supposedly, even though John Brennan voted communist in '76, it's supposed to be apolitical. When you see what's happened at Foggy Bottom now, and you hear Clinton Cash referenced, what are your concerns?
As you said, the intelligence community, and I'm talking the CIA primarily, you know, we are apolitical. The whole point is collecting information and intelligence. But once that information is collected without an agenda, we don't make the decisions. It's back to those policymakers. And if you have policymakers who have someone influencing them or who they are beholden to, it changes the game. And you know, this dovetails with the question about national security and what role it's going to play in the election. And I think that we are at a really difficult point in terms of the world. We've had a situation for 8 years where our government has decided not to lead internationally. We've made this point. So now we're on the brink of, are we going to step into another term where there's no international leadership, or are we going to have a leader? And I think of all the national security questions, that's the one we've got to find an answer to. Is the United States going to step up and lead? And I mean, Obama himself has said he has not taken that role.
I want to get to a caller, but you have the sanctity of a secret ballot. But as I understand it, you've identified yourself as an undecided voter.
Correct.
Anything happened last night to change your mind?
Actually, interestingly, last night, I don't think last night's going to change anybody's mind, frankly. I think that Trump came across as someone who didn't prepare, mostly, but I don't think that changed anybody's mind about him. And I think Hillary Clinton came across as someone who did prepare. She's, wonky. She knows that stuff. I think last night was not a deciding factor for anybody. I'd be very surprised. I think the next debate will be interesting because of the town hall format. But again, frankly, I don't think our minds are going to be changed.
When I hear town hall format, I know the old tricks of the left. They're going to have the audience jam-packed. Let's go back to the phones at 1-877-Newsmax. Deep in the heart of Texas, we find David. Hi, David.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good to have you, sir.
Good afternoon, isn't it? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go right ahead.
I think last night should have been billed as the Donald in the Lion's Den, because Donald went in there with everything stacked against him. I mean, the network, the moderator, the audience, and Clinton were all after him, and he came out without a scratch on him, I think.
Well,
people recognize that and consider that when they vote.
I think that Mr. Trump has a special appeal. But to close it out, Michael, the situation was he could have prepared better. Even a natural may have a great arm, but he has to learn control over the plate. 20 seconds for your final word.
There's a couple of points he missed. I mean, when she started talking about security and cybersecurity, I would have turned to her and said, can you just look in the camera and tell the American people right now that your server in your basement was not hacked? Can you assure us that your secrets are still secrets? I don't think she couldn't come back on that. I mean, what was she going to say?
Obviously, to be continued. Debate number 2 is on the way. Michael Solomon and Lisa Ruth, you have our